Kathy, good morning to you. So, where do things stand at this very moment? And I'm going to start with this. There is a story that is being reported by MoneyWeb that Medupi power station, some of its units are drowning in ash as a contractor is forced to withdraw. Is that part of what is actually plunging us in darkness in the next couple of days?
Good morning, Koli. What we do know is that Eskom has been having difficulties at a number of its substations. They've said that the system, many of the substations are tripping. They haven't really provided concrete answers around what's behind it. So it certainly wouldn't come as a surprise that even what's being reported, as you've indicated, would, of course, be one of the factors leading to this crisis. And of course, you know, during the day, it's really people, at least those that are out and about, trying to deal with the traffic delays. In fact, the traffic light behind me is one of the few that's on my way here. I think literally the northern part of Johannesburg has been plunged into darkness, and the N1 South heading in the direction of Soweto is at a complete standstill because the off-ramps, especially the William Nicol off-ramp, is really closed off. And that's just one of many areas, not just in Gauteng, but I imagine in different parts of the country that are feeling the effects of this crisis. Well, let's talk about what could have possibly led Eskom here. I'm joined by the Business Day and Financial Mail Deputy Editor, Sikonati Manjanja. Thank you so much for leaving your office and coming to join me out here in Megawatt Park, Sikonati. Firstly, let's start with the conspiracy theories. There's rumors going around saying actually this may be sabotage, that people are unhappy and they're simply deliberately, intentionally stopping the power, the supply of power. How probable is it, given your extensive knowledge of how Eskom operates?
Kathy, that at this point, that's really conspiracy theory. What we do have evidence of, what we do know for a fact. Let's not forget that whenever the employees at Eskom have been unhappy with management, they always resort to sabotage. But at this point, we do not know whether there is any hand of sabotage. What we do know is that Eskom cannot get its coal together, cannot get its power stations working, and it's not getting enough diesel for the power stations, emergency power stations on the coastline. That is what we know at the moment. It might just be a bit too early to say there is sabotage as yet. There's no industrial action on the go. Everyone should be at their station and helping to generate power. So it's a bit too early to say there is evidence of sabotage at this point.
Sikonati, I want us to talk about the sheer failures that have been there at Eskom. Some analysts describing where we are now as uncharted territory, dangerous waters really, in the face of this crisis. When you compare it to what we experienced in 2014, 2015, why is this even more of a crisis than it was back then?
Let's deal with the facts first. It's not the first time that Eskom has had to shed or to take off 4,000 megawatts of power in one go. It happened in 2014 late, and indeed in 2015. Except at that point it was not called stage 4. So they did amend their schedules, allowing up to, I think, stage 6. But stage 4 is the equivalent of stage 3 back then. So it's not true that we have not had this amount of power lost. We have had 4,000 megawatts lost. Now, what's causing it? You've just said it. There's a monumental failure in the management of Eskom. And you do know, Kathy, that over the past 10 years, Eskom has had no less than 6 chief executives, no less than 4 chairmen on the board, no less than 4 finance directors. People who are now at executive committee level, the top executives of Eskom, 4 years ago were in junior management. We're not even senior general manager. Most of them were general manager and just divisional manager. Right now, those people have had to be fast-tracked because, of course, Eskom has lost a lot of its talented people to corruption. Let's repeat that. A lot of them have made themselves guilty of corruption and have had to be fired. Since April last year alone, Eskom has lost 17 executives who have been fired or resigned, and then a few have been retrenched in December. So you are talking about an organization of which people that are now managing it 4 years ago were junior people. They don't have the historical, the intellectual background. They don't know how to handle these things. We have been here before. Brian Demis came in as chief executive of Generation in Feb 2008. He faced exactly the same crisis. This was after the load shedding of December. Within 3 months, he had sorted the matter out because he did things that I suspect the people today are not doing and don't know how to do.
You talk about one of the issues also being that Eskom has been run more by politicians rather than it has been by engineers. And then you bring up the names of the likes of Brian Demis. Do you think there's room for broad consultation in this crisis, notwithstanding that even those individuals who left Eskom did not leave under a clear cloud?
I hope you're not suggesting Eskom should go back to those people that made themselves guilty of corruption, sabotage, and indeed treason. I hope you're not suggesting let's go back to them. They have absolutely no place in democratic South Africa outside of jail. Let's just start there. I hope we've got that out of your mind, have we?
I wasn't suggesting, I was asking you that given that we've had this crisis before and there has been a way of responding to it, you say today the capacity is gone. So how do we bring back that capacity?
Great. This country has a lot of talent. Eskom is 95 years old. Let's just start there. Eskom is 95 years old. They are honest, patriotic citizens who worked in this institution, who are still alive. They may not necessarily be in South Africa. They are everywhere doing what engineers do best, generating power. Eskom has until 2009 had access to the best electricians in the world, people who ran utilities in Europe, in Asia, and in America. Come 2009, Eskom got rid of all of them because the politicians took over. And it's not just politicians, it's corrupt politicians took over and pillaged this great institution for their own personal benefit and their friends. Their friends are sitting elsewhere now enjoying sunny climes at the cost of the South African taxpayer, and that is destroying the economy. So there is indeed a lot of room for the people patriotic people who are not guilty of corruption, who are not guilty of treason, who are not guilty of fraud, to come back and help as consultants. But you don't even need to go there. Eskom can always go to the logistics companies. It's not been able to solve the coal supply problem for now 3 years, which was, of course, caused by those fraudsters who gave contracts to the Guptas, who could not deliver. But for 3 years, that has not been sorted out. I repeat, Brian Demis came in April, in Feb 2008, and within 3 months, the matter was sorted because he went to logistics companies and asked for help to move coal from where it is. He went to the Minerals Council of South Africa and diverted coal that should have been sold overseas to domestic use. That can be done now. Transnet stands ready and does have the capacity to truck, to rail all the coal to where it is needed. That's what we need. I don't know if the managers of Eskom at present are doing that. It's not for lack of capacity. The lack of capacity is inside here, not in the country.
All right. Before I let you go, Sukunati, in responding to this crisis yesterday, the president says he was absolutely shocked and angry given the amount of work that we know the Public Enterprises Minister has been doing and the amount of reports that really that would have been compiled on Eskom. Should this come as a surprise?
Not at all. People who are claiming to be surprised are either being economical with the truth or just choose not to know. The fact of the matter is, for the past 8 years, journalists at least have been telling the world and this country what is really happening inside Megawatt Park. So you cannot claim to be surprised. Of course, when you can then again choose to be ignorant and say Pravin Gordhan and Jabu Mabuza and Paramani Hatebe promised in November that this early December, that this matter would be sorted by Feb. It's actually gone backwards. So you could excuse someone for that, but Cyril Ramaphosa was deputy president and in charge of something totally useless called the War Room during Jacob Zuma's time, and that had absolutely no standing other than to pretend that there was something happening. But we do know, of course, what the job of the deputy president comes from. Let's again try and find the way forward. Go to Transnet, get all the trains to go to the power stations to deliver coal. Eskom's excuse for the past 2 years has been that we either can't get coal or it's too expensive and we can't get the trucks. And then there's the red tape about where you have to do tenders. This is an emergency. There are, in the memorandum of incorporation of the company, it does allow for emergency procurement processes, which were used, by the way, by the thieves.
To steal.
To bring Eskom to what it is today, to steal.
All
now
right.
use the same equipment to fix the organization because you can.
All right, Sikunati, I'm going to have to leave it there for now. Certainly a man who never minces his words. And when he speaks about journalists who've been reporting on the rot at Eskom over the years, he's been one of those really spearheading some of those reports. So certainly he knows what he's talking about. Olim Gambi, that's where we'll leave it for now. Back to you in studio.
Live for us outside the Eskom headquarters here in Johannesburg. That's Megawatt Park. That's Kathy Motlahlana, the ENCA anchor there, speaking to Sikunati Majanja about this crisis in Eskom. And of course, as I mentioned to Kathy earlier, there are reports coming through that a maintenance contractor at Medupi power station, that's the power station in Limpopo, which is part of the new build program within Eskom, it's reported there that some 5 power generation units are now in trouble as a maintenance contractor has since pulled out. We probably will have to keep our eyes and ears in as far as that story is concerned.